Okay, so here we are on the first pass of the Scary Crows project. We're going to get started in that case. So I've wiped the grade from the initial clip, and then it's up here in my LD stills. This is the one I've chosen. Looks pretty stable to me. It's got a nice emphasis on the warm v cool, and it's not over the top. We could push it further if we wanted to. We could make it a bit more cartoony. And that begins to show up the joins a little bit, although it does fit more into the kind of live-action cartoon part of the brief. But I'm not doing that. I've instead chosen to go for this. So what we're going to do is get rid of that. Now, when we're dealing with, especially a dialogue sequence, when we're dealing with drama, the first thing we do is we go through and we set up all of our clips to be in groups before we do any grading. So we're going to do this. We're going to Control or Command and click these multiple clips here, which are all from the same angle, and I will then place these into the same group. Now there's a chance that not every one of these angles is going to respond to the same grade the same way, but that's okay. We'll see how far that gets us, and then when we go through and we proof check it, we will see if we get into trouble there. And it may be that one or two require a second group, but we'll see. So I've got all of those selected now. I'm going to right click. I'm going to add into a new group. Then we're going to call this 2 actors CU. It's always good practice to learn the actors or the characters' names when you're doing this. It's just I graded this film 3.5 years ago, and I can't remember anymore without a script to hand. So then we go through and we get the close-up on this actress here. And I've worked on a few projects who starred this actress, actually. It's kind of an odd coincidence. Add into a new group. Actress close-up. And we have a third angle in here we don't see too often, which is this guy who looks a bit kind of PewDiePie-ish. And we're just going to put that third angle all together. And we're just going to go and find all of these angles and put them together as well. We'll add into a new group and actor close-up. All close-ups in that scene. That's maybe that's mid close-up MCU, who knows. Then we have other angles down here, but we'll deal with those when we get to them. So we're going to focus on this first dialogue sequence, and we're going to start group pre-clip, and we're just going to paste that look in there, and here we've got a pretty solid look. It's all pretty good, and now that has applied itself to all of these clips, and that's a nice efficient way to work. Now obviously just clicking one thing and pasting it across all these clips, that has not done the whole job for us. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to check later on, especially later on, when we have, things like this, where that we can just about see the edge of the garbage map we place down here to avoid the shadow down there. What we might do is make a second group out of angles where we don't want that, although it might just be one or two shots. It's whenever they put their hands up at the bottom, they'll move into that garbage map we made to exclude this little kind of windowsill thing back there. Anyway, that is looking pretty good. So what we will do is then move on to the second shot. And we're going to go group pre-clip in here as well. And now we can take a look. Now that's a pretty decent start, although it does need some extra work. And obviously we can clearly see the garbage mat down there. So we can middle click that. We'll go into this node. And we're going to get rid of the garbage mat we made down here, which is just making problems with the skin because we don't need it in this shot. Now that's looking alright to me. It's looking a little bit greener whilst the other one's looking blue, and it's obviously darker. So what we're going to do is take a look through. Now there are some issues with the skin key down here, and this final node, this node number 5, which before took care of our yellow shirt, is not relevant in this shot, so we're going to get rid of it. This shirt down here is causing issues in our skin key, So we're going to have to take a look and see if we can deal with that, and it might just be a simple case. Or it might not just be such a simple case. Okay, there's no way to escape that with a key. If we move that, we get some odd looking blue highlights down there. What we might just do then is really blur it out, and we can kind of hide the join. And that's enough. Now we don't get definite red patches and we don't get definite blue patches. It's a bit of a quick fix, but every now and again that's just what you have to do. Remember, we've got 4 hours to finish this. We're not putting a full 8-hour working day into this one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the underside bluer, because what we can see from the previous shot is that our background is actually quite blue and we've got a kind of a grey-green thing going on back here. So we want that to reflect what's going on in the other shot. So we're just going to... There we go. Now that's getting to be a much better match. And if we cut from one angle to the next, they definitely look like they're in the same place. Yeah, we've got a bit of a highlight issue down here we'll take care of in a second. But let's just watch this through and make sure there are no obvious kind of errors. And it all looks pretty good. The skin might be a touch on the red side. And I might just bring it down a little bit. Nope, wrong setting. Give us slightly more of a golden skin colour. And that's more like it to me. Actually, maybe we'll make that 49.5. There we go. Right, so that's looking alright to me. We've got that highlight issue and we're just going to take care of that quickly. We've got a serial node after the layer mixer here. I'm just going to go into log, go to where I can see it, set my high range very high indeed. Kind of 0.7, 0.8, 0.75. And then I'm just going to bring up some red in there, and then I'm going to bring that down. And what that's going to do, and maybe I'll bring the high range down a smidge, there we go. Then what that's just going to do, that's just going to neutralize that kind of blue highlight there, and it looks a little bit less artificial, looks a bit more natural to us. So that's a good start. That's pretty solid, I would say. I'll probably come back and change this later on, but now if we look between these two, we might change the contrast a little bit in this one, because this is a very bright angle and this is a very dark one. We could probably bring this one down and bring this one up to kind of even it out. So let's just give that a go now. Let's make another serial here. And what we might just do, bring our highlights down a little bit. That's getting closer, and now what we might just do is bring our mids up a smidge here and bring our highlights down very slightly. Now let's just see how these two edit together. Right, I might just take some of the saturation out of this one now that it's duller. We might just need to kill the sat ever so slightly. And then I will just bring this yellow shirt down a little bit. I like it sticking out, it's a little bit much at the moment. Now let's just see how these two edit together. That's much more like it to me. Excellent. I might just try and get a little bit more blue out of this background. I need to be careful because it's starting to show up on the neck there where there's a hole in the key, so maybe I'll just... And that's okay, we can kind of buy in that we've got cool light coming in from the left-hand side, so that's not a super big problem. It's not ideal, but it's also not a deal breaker. So now if we watch these two together, these edit together pretty nicely now, so I'm going to save. And then when we watch through during our second pass, we're going to have a fairly quick first pass. We're going to go through and get everything in more or less the right place using group grades. Then our second pass, we're going to come through and we're going to start, really balancing things out. So now we can move on to our third angle. And we can take a look. And that looks pretty good. Looks like a pretty good starting point, actually. This angle is very similar. Oh, we're having some weird overlay. If you look at the highlights in the upper left, the overlay blend mode can cause weird things going on in the highlights because the math gets very odd. So just keep an eye out. If you're using overlay with very bright footage, you're going to get some very strange looking stuff going on in the highlights, but we're not going to use that here. We will take a look at this one, and this is a pretty good look. There's some errors, like there's some bits of pink on the shirt. So if we take a look down here, and he is looking a little bit pink, so we'll try and deal with that. And we don't need the yellow shirt node again. We're getting a lot of leverage out of just one grade here, which is good. It also helps everything balance up. But like I said, this is a faster project. It's a faster approach to making a project. And I think we'll just exclude a bit of yellow and maybe take out some of the shadows. And then we'll blur it right out as well to hide the joins. And that's pretty good. And what we want to do is just avoid that kind of pinkish look that he's got. Cool. Now we're losing his eyes in shadow a little bit here, and that's an issue for the second pass. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a vignette on each of these shots and brighten his eyes up a little bit because we can't quite get them. We could experiment with changing the overall exposure, but in order to get his eyes are overshadowed by his brow and his hair, so they are in fact the darkest thing in the image, which isn't ideal. So, and obviously we've got lighting above him, so there's kind of like a down shadow coming down onto his eyes there. Which is not ideal. So in the second pass, we're going to come back through and we're going to fix his eyes with some vignetting, and we're not going to do too much vignetting, too much tracking. We're going to mainly go through it, make sure it's a good match and it goes through, because there's another. That's fine. There's another 85, 75 minutes to deal with after this. That is, of course, not to say that I'm going to give you the entire film to grade, but we're going to carry on as if we have a proper full feature film to take care of. So what we're going to do now, we've got this in a decent place, we're just going to give it a look. Let's just make sure that these two edit together. We did bring this down. He could be a little bit bright. What I might just do, I'm going to bring down my highlights and raise my mids a little bit. And that means I'll have to drop my shadows ever so slightly, and that just gets us back into the kind of darker look. Now, we can run into some problems where reading our scopes can become quite difficult when matching shots like this, because this shot is naturally darker, this shot is okay, this shot has some very bright stuff in the background we do not see in other shots, and this can make it difficult for us to match, because when we look at our parade, we see these great big bright values that aren't actually present in these other shots. However, these big highlights here are okay, they're justifiable. Most of our contrast is this kind of region and below. And that's his face, his shoulders, the foreground. It's the background here which is very bright. So these bright spikes on here are actually okay because they're these background details, and it's not jarring as we watch the two. So we can see there to there, it doesn't actually jar us that much. I might just tweak his skin a little bit more. I might just bring it up there. So now what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to take care of that glaring highlight in the background, because not only is it distracting, it's close to the upper left third, and so it's a very bright, attention-grabbing feature in compositionally a very important place, which makes it even more distracting, so we want to definitely take care of that. And I will do that with the curves. And you can see as it comes down, it gets very, very blue because the blue in there is clipped, so I'm going to use the blue channel curve. I'm just going to bring that down. In fact, that's not what I'm going to do. Better idea. Lumen VSAT, and I'm just going to bring the saturation of that brightest thing down a little bit, and there we go. Now it's much more natural, it's in the background, it doesn't distract. And we've got a decent match between these three. I might just bring down my gain, raise my mids, and that way I will just raise my gain. Oops. I might just raise my gain in here a little bit and give it back some of its kind of natural brightness, because I didn't like dimming that one down too much. Okay, we've got some magenta in our highlights up here. Is that because we're having a hole in our key? Nope, that's fine. When is that being introduced? Okay, we've got some magenta in our highlights. Yeah. The highlight correction that fixes the shirt has also hit some skin highlights here, so we're going to have to be a little bit more finessed with that, actually. If you can hear doors slamming behind me, apologies, people are going in and out all the time at the moment. Right, that's much better. That's now avoided our little magenta skin highlights problem. Now let's watch it through. Okay, this last shot still looking a little bit bright. I think we might just bring the mids up here a little bit. And then we're going to have to vignette his face and bring him out further on. But now that's a pretty good match all the way through. And for the sake of our first pass, that's now fine. In the second pass, we're going to go through. What we'd do with the client is we'd say, look, we've got this to more or less the right place. We're now going to go through and actually match out the problems, get everything sorted. And then we do that detailed work later on. Then we can move on to the rest of the sequence down here, which is going to fall onto the same basic look, but it's going to need some more kind of manual work to do. So we've now got this first bit sorted. What we will do is we're going to get these hammer shots sorted next. Now we can see how these might take the look. There's a lot of interference with that shirt there. We need to do quite a lot of work here, so it may be that what we have is not actually appropriate, but that's actually pretty easy. We'll just up the clean black on this and we'll blur it out. Okay, that's pretty good, that's pretty easy, and then we'll bring that up. Bring the mids, we're going to bring the saturation in that one up. Actually, no, we won't. We're just going to increase the blue in the background a little bit so that it does actually... And let's see if we can clean this out a little bit more. There we go. Right, that's much better. Those three blood spots are peeking through. That's fine, they should. Excellent. And then we can crush our shadows down a little bit more. And then let's just see how these two cut together. Okay, this shot needs some attention, but we're going to check that in the second pass. Obviously the shirt down here is no good, but we can probably garbage matte that out in this shot, that's okay. We go from very dark to very bright. So we need to do some more work on these two. Again, second pass problems. So let's see how close we can get, and that's pretty good. Let me just check the key. We don't need that extra node, and we don't need that extra node back here. We're getting a lot of mileage out of a single grade, but that's because obviously it's been shot with very consistent lighting throughout, and we're actually quite happy about that. Going to bring down the clean black, and then there we go. And that's fine. What we might just do here is kill the saturation in the skin because it's quite a dark value, and high saturation in dark values does look a bit odd. Might just get a little bit of chattering in there, but it's okay. We'll come back to that in the second pass and polish it out. Okay, and then this, what we might actually just do is add this. We'll go to group and then actress close-up and assign to the group. Okay, there's some more work to go there. We can refine that key, but then that second pass, again, for the time being, that's okay. What we'll do is we'll put a yellow flag on it. We know we need to come back to that in the second pass to fix it. And it might just be a bit of light roto on that shot, which isn't going to be a problem. Very short, very quick. Cool, so we've got that now to first pass standard, and we can now move on to the other shots. We'll come back to the very beginning later on, because now what we want to do is apply our look to our kind of master shot out here. Now we can't just straight up copy and paste over. It doesn't work. So we've got a reference, and we just have to go at this by hand. So we'll get this started. Okay, it's very yellow, clearly. So we're just going to clean out that warmth. We might just make those highlights not quite as harsh and bring our mids up a little bit. I love working with red. It does pretty much whatever you tell it to. It's fantastic footage to work with. And we'll just bring up our saturation a little bit here. Now, we're going to have some issues with warmer colors breaking into our key. Bits of garbage in here. You know, kind of papery skin color. That can be okay. It might be that that works. We then have more warm colors in the background. We'll see how this works out. For the time being, this is a pretty good start. Again, we don't want the highlights to go crazy. I'll just bring that down a little bit, maintain our darkness. We've got some quite strong saturated colors in our shadows, so we're just going to clean those out. We'll go to Lume VSAT. And what we will do, there we go. Just bring that down. We want to stop these boxes and these little bits of machinery in the background from interfering. So we probably just want 2 layers here. And we'll get our first one sorted. We'll get our kind of blue look. I'll turn off the top layer so we can actually see what we're doing. There's just someone clonking around in the background. I'll just bring that saturation down a little bit. So we now have our blue background, and now what we need to do is pull our warm color key, our skin key, and see how well we do. So, also remembering to have the HSL key actually open when we do this. Okay, we are going to get some interference, but what we can do is we can tune that in. Okay, we're probably going to have to combine 2 keys here. We're going to have to combine a key. I need to combine a key for the highlights and the skin because I can't, because they're low saturation, they're going to let everything else in, but that's okay. We're just going to see what else we can get rid of. We've got a bit of green, got a bit of red. I can probably garbage matte the right hand side out. He doesn't move too much and that thing remains pretty static, so I can probably garbage matte that out fairly easily. And then I can go clean black and clean white, and then I can give it a healthy dose of blur. Yeah, so we do need to do a little bit of work. I kind of like the contrast we get in the garbage here, but that's obviously not very clean, so we need to do some work on this. So we're going to need to do another layer, and this time we're just going to take care of this skin highlight, which is just this bit. And now we have a fairly good strong skin key here. Now what I might just need to do is pull down the saturation in the skin, and also use a bit redder in the other shot, so I might just rotate that a little bit and make it so. Do a UV hue, and we'll just rotate the yellow towards red. There we go. And give him that slightly pinker look that we're after. And then do the same on the highlights. Might have been an argument for using a key mixer here instead of a layer mixer, but it's pretty good. Okay, so the skin looks good, the blue looks good. Maybe the garbage needs a bit of a garbage matte. And we can just look at that. And then we can kind of just mask that out roughly. I think he's framed pretty well. What we will just do is make a bigger mask on the side here that can kind of deal with the slight movement. And we'll just watch this through and see if we can spot any errors. It seems pretty stable to me. We might just watch it through with the key on and see. And of course our highlights are being taken care of in the second layer. There might be a slight little shadow down there, but it's barely noticeable, so that's fine. And we might just bring the saturation down here a little bit as well. And it keeps the same look going. Actually, I might just bring that skin back up. That might be a little bit too much of a good thing. And let's just bring that up so I can actually see how the skin... That's a pretty good match for skin, all in all. Shadowy parts of his hair have gone a little bit blue. If we look closely, let's just see if we can do anything about that. Maybe not without getting a lot of unwanted stuff in there. On the shadowy side, that's kind of okay. I want to try and avoid blue noise on the left-hand side of his face. But that's looking pretty good to me. Excellent. So we've got our look sorted here. What we'll do now, we'll make a new still album. We'll call this Working Stills, and then we'll grab a still and place it there. Whilst we're at it, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to grab the hammer still as well, or the close-up still. Cool. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to... Yeah, it's pretty good actually. I'm going to reset all nodes and grades, and now I'm going to group these up. There aren't too many of these shots. And they move a lot in the next one, so I'll put them in their second group. And I think he does actually run through on the next one, so that might need a little bit of tracking. I'm going to add these into a new group. I'm going to call this Actor 1. He can be Actor 1 and PewDiePie can be Actor 2. M, which is a mid shot. Again, if you know the character names or the actor names, always use those. It's been a while for this project and I don't have them to hand anymore. And then we'll put that there. And these are looking okay. There are a few second pass things like the garbage here, the hair. Let's just see if we can try and sort out the hair actually. Actually, that's pretty good. because obviously we're getting a lot of noise in the very dark bits, but because they're very dark and they're also quite warm, it doesn't matter that much. We are getting bits of the shirt. We are getting bits of the shirt in there though, and we need to try and deal with that, so we'll just... Then we'll just give it a good blur so we don't quite get the issues. No, that hasn't helped at all. We'll have the clean black on that, I think. That's looking better. So we'll come back in the second pass and we'll finesse this, get it into the right place. Our next key shot now is going to be these two, and if we're lucky, just see, yeah, we've got quite a lot of work to do here, that's fine. Obviously we don't want it to be that pink, so we're not going to get away with copying and pasting this look along. We're instead just going to have to go at it manually. Right, now it's been half an hour again, so just like the last exercise, I'm mainly just going to be narrating the same thing over and over again, pulling keys, setting up layer stacks, that kind of thing. So if there's anything truly significant, then I will chime in. If not, I'm just going to continue working. Right, I'm back. Well, I was always here, but back in voice. So we're near the end of the first pass now. As you can probably see, there's quite a lot of work to do in the second pass, but that's fine. We'll get there. Building a colour contrast look like this is always a lot of work. It is quite a challenging grade. In the second pass, we're going to go back and we're going to sort out a lot of this and get it to all match up quite nicely, but we've got the groundwork there. I think we've broken the back of this so far. I've got plenty of yellow flags, a red flag or two, and then there's some blue and cyan flags for when I need to do some animation and keyframing. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish off the first pass. And these are looking okay. Obviously he's a bit too red there, but we'll balance that out in the second pass. We're not going to worry about it too much. That's fine there. There we go. Then we've got one last shot, and let's see if it responds well to the crowd. Yeah, that's okay. Might just change that one a little bit. There we go. What a cliffhanger, hey? You're going to have to watch the full film now. Anyway, so we've kept to techniques that we know. We've just been keying using a simple layer stack and just building up a grade like that. We've got plenty of things to smooth out. I've got some shots right at the start to sort out. They're going to be easy enough. I'll do those in a second. And we can just go into the second pass. Basically, we're going to try and keep this to about 4 hours maximum. We've had about 1 hour 10, 1 hour 15 so far. So we need to step it up a bit, step it up a bit. And the second pass shouldn't take us as long as the first because a lot of our stuff is pretty good. Most of this first dialogue sequence is pretty good. A lot of this stuff is all right. In the second pass, I'm probably going to regrade these angles completely because I've discovered another kind of way of building up a secondary which produces a nicer image to me, I think. And obviously we've got these issues with the garbage here, and there's one where he actually does run in front of the big garbage pile. It's a great location, this. It was a recycling centre that they found. I think we've got big keying issues here, so these shots are going to need a regrade, but that's okay. But this was a recycling centre they got permission to film in, and apparently it stank. Like, it was quite a hot summer day when they filmed in there, and it was not a pleasant location at all. But that's what indie filmmaking is like. I'll have to do a bit of a keyframe in here in the second pass, but that's easy. So I'll just fix these two, and basically all I need to do is apply that, and I'm going to take out the skin key because there's actually no skin color that walks in front of this. So it'll just be a simple string of primaries. What I do need to do is make sure that the blacks are black. They're a bit blue at the moment, so I will correct that. There we go. And it's a little bit too dark for its own good, so what we will then do is we'll just bring it up a bit. And then we can just want to take some of the colour out of the shadows there. There we go. And that now cuts into the next shot quite nicely. Going from there, and maybe a little bit less. And then the lights come on. There we go. Cool, so we're pretty much at the end of our first pass now. Now, if you're finding the keys and everything difficult, do not worry. This is actually quite an advanced look. Color contrast and building around a skin key is actually very advanced and quite difficult. It does take a lot of work. So if you're finding that that's a challenge, don't worry. I'm actually finding this one difficult as well. I remember working on this now. And I remember the difficulty I had in keying out all the shots. There are going to be some rough edges, but in the faster shots, it's okay to have a few rough edges because we're not really going to see them. There are some shots which clearly need more work. And these are actually a different codec. One's a compound clip and one's DNX because it was a retimed clip and they caused problems with XML conforms. So there's plenty of work to do in the next one. So once you're happy with your first pass, and remember we're trying to work to pace, we're going to click on through to the next lecture. So go ahead once you're ready.